All right, it's exactly 1 week to go for Election Day. Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. The election is deadlocked between the Democrat candidate and the Republican candidate. Many are saying this is the closest election that they've seen in their lifetime, and we will tell you why. Look at the latest CNN polling, the monthly tracker that CNN has put out. The month of October 2024, it is an absolute dead heat. 47% say they'll vote for Harris, 47% say they will vote for Trump. The problem for Harris is that she had a lead, a bigger lead a month ago, a month and a half ago. That has now been narrowed by Trump. If you look at the same CNN polling tracker from September of 2024, and Harris had a good September, she had a good debate, the ABC News debate where she clearly emerged the winner. She had a 1 percentage lead in the CNN tracker in September, 48% Harris to 47% Trump. But if you go back all the way to July, just around the time that Joe Biden decided to pull out of the race and Harris became the official candidate from the Democratic Party, she was at a deficit of 46%. So trailing Trump by about 3 percentage points because she was sort of inheriting a lot of the legacy and overhang from Biden. So she started off negative 3 points compared to Trump, and then she managed to go up against Trump, 1 point up in the month of September. But now it is a virtual dead heat. It's 47-47. Now, remember, Americans vote not just on the day, which is 5th of November, but there's tons of early voting that happens, both by postal ballots, which is called mail-in, or early in-person voting. So this is what we know so far. More than 30 million people have already voted early, some of them by mail-in ballots, some of them by in-person early voting. Now, if you look at the breakup of this 32 million, about 14 million, almost 15 million have been early in-person voting. They have come to their booths over the weekend, on holidays, and come and cast their vote. Because remember, unlike here in India, Election Day is not a holiday in the United States. You still have to work. So a lot of people preferring early in-person voting. Mail-in ballots too. And this became very, very popular during COVID. In the last election cycle in 2020, over 100 million mail-in ballots in that election. This time around, 17.8 million out of the 32 million are mail-in ballots. So the numbers are starkly less compared to last time around, but then the difference is that election was in the middle of COVID. This one, there are more people preferring in-person voting, whether early or otherwise. Now, here is how it breaks up in the early voting nationally. The Democrats traditionally have had an edge in early voting. That edge is reducing, but it is still a Democrat lead as far as early voting is concerned. Kamala Harris, 6.6 million people nationally, and Donald Trump, 5.8 million people nationally. So the Democrats lead by about 800,000 votes, but that is still something that can be overcome very much so come Election Day. That firewall that the Democrats have been building through in-person voting, because Democrats tend to prefer early voting as compared to voting on the day of the election. That firewall is right now around 800,000 votes. Joe Biden, for example, in the 2020 election cycle, went with over a million plus firewall into Election Day. Let's talk about the battleground states. How are they showing the early vote? If you look at the state of Pennsylvania, and this is the most critical state according to many opinion pollsters, Harris has to win Pennsylvania to win the presidency. 1.2 million ballots have been cast in Pennsylvania. So far, the Democrats seem to be doing pretty well in Pennsylvania. Harris getting almost 6 out of 10 votes, 59% for Harris, 30% for Donald Trump. In fact, the Democrat lead is over 380,000 votes. So going into polling day, if they have a 400,000 firewall, the Democrats should be feeling good about Pennsylvania, which is the biggest battleground state, 19 electoral college votes, a state which is a must-win for Kamala Harris. If you look at Nevada, here the situation has changed. 6 electoral college votes. Biden won the state last time around. In fact, the last couple of election cycles, Nevada has been voting blue. But here in early voting, it is the Republicans who are leading. It's a small lead, 40,000 votes. Donald Trump, 40% vote, and Harris, 35% of the almost 700,000 votes that have been cast so far. The Republicans have managed to improve their early voting ground game to take a lead against the Democrats in the state of Nevada. It's a smaller state, just six electoral college votes, but it is a blue state. It was a blue state in the last election. In the cycle before that, now it looks like Harris might have to lose that state of Nevada. But let's look at Georgia. Again, a big state, 15 electoral college votes, 16 electoral college votes. In fact, Biden flipped Georgia by a very slender margin of just 12,000 votes last time around. Georgia does not release bi-party breakup of early voting, but they do release demographics. Now, here again, it's very interesting. Georgia has seen record early voting. 3 million votes have already been cast, both in mail-in as well as early in-person voting. In fact, on the first day when early voting was declared in Georgia, more than 300,000 people showed up. If you look at the breakup, almost 60% of early voters in Georgia have been white. 26%, more than a quarter of the vote, has been black. Remember, in 2020, Joe Biden won the state of Georgia primarily on the strength of the black vote. It was a state that the Democrats had not won since Bill Clinton in 1992. Joe Biden managed to flip that by a margin of just 12,000 votes. Trump had famously hit out against the Secretary of State of Georgia, saying he was falsely declaring Biden the winner. He stood by his ground. He stood by the vote count. Biden carried that state narrowly. Out of the 3 million early voters in Georgia, 59% male, 59% white, and a quarter of the vote are blacks. Also, let's take a look at another key statistic in early voting, and this could point in a direction which might be concerning for the Republicans, because women are outnumbering men by a substantial number. By about 8 percentage points nationally, more women are casting their vote than men. In fact, if you look at this, this particular figure, and if you break it down for elderly women, women above the age of 65, this goes up by a couple of percentage points. It goes up to 56%. Now, many women are concerned about the abortion issue. The Democrats have been really, in the closing weeks of this election campaign, have been really pressing on that message. It's about the women vote. It's about women's right to control their bodies, reproductive freedoms, etc. Look at all of the rallies that Harris has attended in the last few days, closing out her argument with Beyonce in Houston, campaigning with Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, campaigning with Michelle Obama. She's been hammering home the point that this election is about women. We saw this in the 2022 midterms. Suburban white women were the key difference, the key demographic that tilted the scales for the Democrats. They're hoping that women will come good again in this election cycle. So this number might even out by election day. Traditionally, women have preferred early voting as opposed to voting on the day off. This will even out closer to 50-50. But in this, if women are voting in larger numbers for Harris because abortion is the top issue for them on the ballot, that is something that the Republicans might need to pay some attention to.